with Rashida, and we were kind of partners in crime to make sure that the community was coming out to vote, that all of Detroit and Dearborn were coming out to vote that year, and we stayed in touch. That was the year that she was first elected state representative, and she went on to serve for 3 terms before the term limits kicked in Michigan. I've been to Michigan a couple of times to help her with her campaigns, wins and losses, and I was so honored and proud to join her at her in-district swearing in last year after her historic election to Congress. So let me turn briefly to this election. Actually before that, I have to recognize my incredible parents and my family for being with us today. Will Rashid, Abu Rashid, please stand up and be recognized. I wouldn't be able to do any of this without them and their support and their love. So let's talk briefly about this coming election on March 17th. When my parents came to this country in 1966 and moved to Chicago in 1970, they didn't have anything like that. My dad worked minimum wage jobs. My mom ran a booth at the flea market. I remember growing up going with her to the flea market on Division and Costner. And they worked over years. They toiled years and decades to save up a little bit of money. My dad pooled his money with his brother. They opened a small business in Bucktown. And they were able to slowly but surely rise into the middle class, to buy their own home, to send my siblings and me to college. And that path today for working families, for middle class families, is so much harder for people in Cook County, partly because of our broken and corrupted property tax system. That's punishing working families, punishing homeowners in order to give huge tax breaks to the downtown corporations, to downtown skyscrapers like Trump Tower. And that's why I'm running, to take on the greed and the corruption in our property tax system. I'm proud to have the support of so many leaders, from Senator Durbin and Mayor Lightfoot to 4 other members of Congress, to the Cook County Democratic Party and the Chicago Federation of Labor, and so many more, some of the other elected officials in this room, like Mayor Alsbury. But let me tell you, when we first started this campaign in August, we didn't have that coalition of support. We started from scratch, and folks like Rashida can tell you, folks like Congresswoman Robin Kelly can tell you that when you're not part of the machine, you don't just get that support. You gotta fight for it. You gotta work for it, and we did. And what enabled us to build this incredible coalition, to be endorsed not just by all these folks, but also by all 3 papers, the Tribune, the Sun-Times, and the Daily Herald, is our community. You guys have been and continue to be the backbone of this effort. When I ran for Cook County Commissioner in 2018, politicians, many of them stayed away from us. They said, we don't want to get close to you. You're too risky. You're going to get clobbered in the election. Your community isn't going to come out to vote. Your community doesn't donate to politics. They only give to charitable causes. You're too risky for us. And then just before the election, they came running to us and they said, how do we help? What can we do to support you? How do we endorse you? And what has changed in the few months between that distance and that incredible support that came our way was they saw our community turn out to vote by the thousands. We got calls saying, we're seeing all these folks come after Friday prayer to early vote in Orland Park. We're seeing your community turn out in numbers that we've never seen before. And we know that from our statistics and the data that we've crunched, that's true. We doubled turnout in 2018 over the previous cycle. And we built the strongest and the best grassroots effort that the Southwest suburbs had seen in decades, thanks to our community. And you funded our campaign. When they said they don't give money to you, you funded our campaign and you allowed us to build toward that. And I'm very, very grateful for that. On this campaign, we're continuing to build on that legacy. So here is where we're at today. We have just about 2 weeks left. Early voting starts tomorrow. We still have a fundraising gap to fill, and that's why Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib is here with us today. And we know the reality. A lot of folks we know, a lot of voters. First of all, turnout in primary elections is low to begin with, but on top of that, people are going to vote, and they generally know who they're going to vote for president. They might know who they're going to vote for Congress or for state's attorney. It's a high-profile race in Cook County this year. But they may not do the research on the down-ballot races, like Board of Review. They may not know much about me or about my opponent, and as a result, they may vote randomly or they may skip the race entirely. And so it's extremely important that we take our message directly to voters so that we can send a strong message to those who don't believe that our community deserves a voice, who don't think that we can make a difference, that together we can win. And with your help, we will. We're counting on you to help us win this election and be elected to a district that would represent over 1.5 million Americans throughout Cook County. So with that, I would like to introduce my friend, Congresswoman Robin Kelly. Robin was an early supporter of my campaign. I mentioned that we had to fight for people's support. We didn't have to fight for her support. She was there with us from day one, from the very beginning. She's a former member of the Illinois House of Representatives. She served as Chief Administrative Officer for Cook County, and she was the Chief of Staff for Illinois State Treasurer Alexi Janulius, becoming the first African-American woman to serve as Chief of Staff to an elected statewide constitutional officer. And since being elected to Congress in the 2nd District in 2013, Congresswoman Kelly has worked hard to expand economic opportunity, community wellness, and public safety across the state, championing numerous initiatives to generate job growth, reduce health disparities, and end gun violence. She's a member of the House Energy and Commerce Committee and the House Committee on Oversight and Reform, while also serving on the National Security and Civil Rights and Civil Liberties subcommittees. It's my honor and privilege to welcome Congresswoman Robin Kelly.